Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sarah. I am the Assistant Marketing Director for ASTPS, and just wanted to thank you all for joining us for the Direct Mail Is It Dead webinar that we have for you today. And I know it's a very busy time of year for everyone, so I'm glad you could join us. We are just about ready to get started with the webinar, so I will pass it along to Larry Lawler, the National Director of ASTPS and Certified Guerrilla Marketing Guru, who will take it away. Larry?
Hi, everybody. I hope you're all having a fun and successful tax season. And before I get any more emails, because I've already gotten a few from people telling me I'm absolutely out of my mind for running a seminar in the middle of tax season, and then on top of that running it without continuing professional education credit, I'm just going to try and stop a few emails and have you realize that we're doing this because the timing is such that we want to keep your businesses rolling after tax season is over for all of you that are tax practitioners. So, you know what it's like when you hit that April 15th drop off, and then all you've got is some extensions to do, and then you're all of a sudden thinking, oh boy, I need some more business coming in the door. I want to continue to live well like I do during tax season. So the whole point of having this seminar at this time is because you need to have a 3-month startup period for most any marketing campaign, and some of them can be a lot longer than that, but 3 months generally will work for a lot of the campaigns because it takes time for people to react to things. So today we're going to be talking about successful direct mail marketing, and I'm going to give you, as part of this presentation, a campaign that we've run, and it runs successfully, and it's gotten some great results and that sort of thing. So the reason for doing it in the middle of tax season is because you need to get started on some of these things, start thinking about what you're going to do, because you don't want to come to the middle of July and find out you have nothing to do but the tax problem cases that come in from your newspaper advertising and things. This is a much more proactive approach to things where we're going out and we're finding the business, if you will. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today, whether direct mail marketing works or how it works compared to other things. And let's get started talking about those. But there's one caveat. You do not have any handouts. You don't have anything emailed to you that you have to have in your hands or anything else. Sit back, relax, watch the screen. That's all you need to look at. If you want the slides, I will be happy to put them up in the members area within 24 hours of the seminar, let's say, just to give people time to get it done for you. But you can have them all. There's no reason why you can't. I just would much rather that you pay attention and listen rather than trying to write notes or do something else or read them or anything of that sort. So we're going to get started with it. The slide right now is just showing you that not only am I a CPA and EA and a Certified Tax Resolution Specialist and an NTPI Fellow, but what's more appropriate for today is that I am a Certified Guerrilla Marketing Coach. That's what a CGMC is. The other thing, by the way, is a Certified World-Class Speaking Coach. And I have, taken both of those programs and I've put them to use for our members in a couple of different ways. And the reason I mention that right now is because on the next slide here, you're going to see something about the realtor presentation that we offer. And that's a classroom size, by the way, that only allows 10 people in it. It's a much smaller thing. It's a much more focused thing. It involves learning presentation skills, that sort of thing. I'm mentioning that right now because I don't want confusion between what we're doing today and the realtor program. If someone is running a calculator, could you please mute yourself? Somebody's running a calculator in my ear. And not that I don't know what they sound like, but I don't need to hear it. So the realtor presentation that you may have seen marketed, and many of you have attended already, we've run it probably a half a dozen times now, is not what we're talking about today. That's just something that covers realtors' taxes, client taxes, tax problems. So we're going to say that just so there's no confusion, in case you've been to the realtor thing, this is something different. It is something that you might use with the realtor program if you've taken it, or not. You don't have to have taken the realtor program to use it. So let's get started talking about the marketing in and of itself. First question is, do you market? And many practitioners that I talk to say, they've never seen their tax problem resolution business take off like they hoped it would. And then I talk to them a little bit about what marketing they do, and they say, I don't know, you must be lucky because you've been doing it for so long, people know who you are and things. Well, you know what, there's a little truth to that. After a while, you do build a reputation for it. However, roll in a 4-year television campaign that we did, roll in numerous direct mail campaigns that we've done, newspaper advertising, things of that nature. We've done all kinds of marketing. So sure, we've built a reputation and people in the area know us, and we do get a certain amount of business from that. What we're trying to give you here is one of those tools that we know is very effective, and have you understand how to use it and make the best use of it, because direct mail can be a wonderful and useful tool, but on the other hand, it can be an extremely wasteful tool. We're going to talk about how to keep it from being so wasteful. But first question is, do you market it, and is it worth the time and expense? And my feeling is that if you don't market, you're just giving up a great deal of what you could be otherwise bringing in. As far as the cost of it and some of this particular campaign, I'm going to give you our exact figures on some things. But the sole purpose of marketing is to make money. So if you aren't getting a return on your marketing, for example, I have a threshold that I like to follow. It's 3-to-1. If I don't get at least a 3-to-1 ratio on my dollars invested, in other words, for every dollar I spend on marketing, I want it to bring in 3 new dollars, and that is the minimum. I'm much, much happier when it's 5, and some things get to be considerably higher than that. But if you don't have at least that minimum, you really are wasting your marketing dollars, and you need to get involved and pay attention to what you're doing and start tweaking things to make them work better. And you don't necessarily throw things out when they aren't working well. You actually want to spend the time looking at what am I doing, could I do it better, how did I avoid or miss the target, how did I not focus on what I should be focused on. And if you still can't make it work, then maybe in the area you live, that particular type of marketing just doesn't work very well. And it's funny because some things work better in different regions than they do in others. I've had people tell me that they do wonderfully with radio. Yet I can tell you from experience that we've tried radio in both Rochester, New York and Buffalo, New York, and didn't find the results to be all that exciting. Now, the bottom line of that is probably that we've got a whole lot of radio stations around here, and that the audience is pretty fragmented because there's, 10% of the people listen to this one, 10% of people listen to that one. Well, unless you advertise on all of them, you're only hitting a small portion of the market. So those are the kinds of things you want to look at. What is your marketing working? Isn't it working, and why? But is it worth the time and expense? The answer to that question, in my mind, is absolutely and unequivocally. If it's not, you got to change something, make it work, make it worthwhile. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how you go about marketing. You can, as the screen shows you there, you can do, the television, radio, newspaper, direct mail, internet display marketing, as well as internet pay-per-click marketing. Those are 2 different approaches on the internet. Display marketing is where people are searching for something that might be somehow related to you, or even not in some cases, and your ad pops up next to what they're searching for. The pay-per-click marketing is something where every time you get someone to respond to you by clicking on your ad, clicking on your line item at the top of a search, where you're going to pay something for it, and that's a bidding war sometimes, depending on what it is you're doing. Many people need help to do that. It is not something that you just do automatically. It's not like writing an ad and putting it in your local newspaper. You should all have a website. I don't think we need to discuss whether or not people need to have websites these days. It's absolutely necessary for you to establish credibility in the market. People automatically go and look at people's websites these days to see if they want to do business with them. There is the search engine optimization, obviously, to make your website show up more often. Certainly a good marketing tool. Billboards. We've got people who run billboard ads and find that they work for them. They can also be pretty expensive. So, it's still a possibility to do that. One of my favorites, public speaking, going out and talking to different groups. I mentioned earlier the realtors that we go and speak with, and we have a whole system designed to do that many of our members are using and have attended our course. They're using them, and they're finding some really good results with them. Referral systems, obviously you always want to build that. You want to deal with other professionals, whether they're bankers or attorneys or other accountants. And believe it or not, by the way, all of you accounting types out there, enrolled agents and CPAs, Other CPAs and other enrolled agents will refer to you, but you've got to go out of your way to make it happen. They don't just do it automatically until you've really built up a reputation in your community for being the place to go with tax problems. But you can do it by sending them letters telling them, I'd like to handle your client's tax problems, send them over. When I'm all done, I promise I'll send them back, and you'll find that they will eventually come around and start referring to you. You can do, all the magazine ads and the church bulletins. You can put handout brochures in restaurants, things like that. All kinds of different ways to market. In fact, one of the things that I would like, if you can do it, is I would like you to let me know what types of things you do that work best for you, because maybe we can even share some of them on this call if they come in quickly enough. But we like to look at what will work for the members of ASTPS. How can we go about getting them more business and getting them a bigger piece of all the business that's out there, because we are not like some of those mills that are just taking people's money and not doing the job. We want to be the good housekeeping seal of approval if you're an ASTPS member, so we like to share things, with our other members. If you've got some good things, good ideas, please go ahead and type them into the chat box right now during this webinar if you want to. Send them to me by emails. You can do it any way you want to do it. We like to hear things that work best and be able to share them with other people. A great deal of our mission is to educate our members to be good, solid practitioners by providing technical information, that sort of thing. But we also want them to be successful practitioners, and that's why we run things like the Realtor Boot Camp and the Marketing Sales Management Boot Camps and things like that, so that we can help you to grow your practice. We have a number of different things that you're aware of, I'm sure, newsletters and things like that we produce that you can label as your own. So we're trying to do done-for-you marketing, as they call it, so that you don't waste all your time doing these things and you can just jump on board, get the marketing done, and get the new business in. So all kinds of different marketing. Let me know which ones work best for you. I'd really like to hear from you guys about that sort of thing. Which ones work best is always the question. Every time I run a boot camp, marketing sales management boot camp, I hear, which methods work best? What is the best thing to do? To me, there is no best thing to do. You've got to work on all different things, okay? If you don't know which ones are working best for you, you're really probably wasting a whole lot of money. You've got to know which ones are working best for you. And then pay attention to the ones that aren't, too, so that you can see if you can tweak them. Hopefully, you're doing more than just one or two things. The more marketing methods you have in place, the more likely you are to have an extremely successful practice. So the question always comes up, well, how many is a good number to do? Well, if you're a sole practitioner, you may not be able to handle doing more than 2 or 3 things. Maybe depending on what they are. Obviously, if it's a display ad in the newspaper, that doesn't take any time or energy to do that. So, you might add 2 or 3 on top of that. But what you want to do is as many as you can do well. And if they're not working well, as many as you can take time to work on and focus on. So that's the proper number of them. They've got, by the way, work well, it means they're paying off. You're getting that 3-to-1 return. Often get the question, how do I know what my return is on it? I know what I spent for the ad, or I know what I spent to run the campaign if I did direct mail, or if I ran a TV or a radio ad or a newspaper ad. I know what I spent for that, but how do you know what your return is on it? The coattails of this kind of marketing in this area are pretty long. We'll find that people walk around, if we ran an ad in the newspaper 2 years ago, they may come in here now that the IRS has finally gotten on them hard enough to make them move, and they'll open up their wallet and take out an ad and say, yeah, I tore this out of the paper because I knew I'd have to come see you someday, and I wanted to have this phone number, so that's how I heard about you. And we look at it and we say, we haven't run that ad in 2 years. The guy's been carrying it around in his wallet. So, how long do you sit back and watch your marketing go? Well, you don't want to be looking at 2-year windows, 3-year windows. You're certainly aware of the fact that it has long coattails. If you run a 6-month TV ad campaign, you're going to hear people talking to you a year after it ended saying, oh, I saw you on TV. They don't realize that, no, they just saw you in person, and that reminded them that they saw you sometime or another in the past on TV. I get people all the time telling me, oh, I heard you on the radio. I haven't run a radio ad. How'd that happen? So they get confused a little bit. But if you know that the business is coming in, there's one way to tell who comes in the door and who pays you money. So what we do, very, very simple approach. We have a list at the front desk. We write, we take the information from our pre-interview form that they fill out sitting in the waiting room. We ask them, where did you hear about us? Did someone refer you? Did you see us on TV? Whatever. They give us the answer to that question, and we just log it in, and we keep that log running. Then we go back and match up the number of dollars that the client who's actually come through the door. In other words, not all the people who know of us or everything else. Awareness is not the big thing. It's great that people are aware. You want that to happen. But what really counts is the people who come through the door and bring their checkbook with them and help to support your practice and pay you and your staff. So that's what we do is we keep a list of them going. We go back and match up the number of dollars we brought in from them, and we look at nothing more than a 3 to 4 month, depending on the campaign window. And that's from, for example, if I run a 3-month direct mail campaign, I will stop tracking that particular direct mail 3 months after the campaign ends. So actually we're involved in it for 6 months, because the first time I run it, the very first month, I get some results. So those should certainly be counted. The second month I get some results. But when you're all said and done, the 3 months is over, you send out all 3 stages of it, then you still continue to track that campaign for at least another 3 months, so you know what it really did for you, what kind of return investment you got. You want to make sure that these things are paying off. You're investing your dollars in your practice, and you want them working for you. So do you track your results? I hope you do. If you don't, you're probably wasting money along the way, and you could do a whole lot to put that money to use in a lot better way. So let's move on here and ask, who do we market to? And some people, have the attitude of they market, if you will, to the masses, the crowds, the throngs, the hordes, and the multitudes. Well, no, that is insane. Why would you send out, for example, direct mail or whatever else to everyone in your community when half of the people in your community are either unemployed, children, or people who have absolutely no interest in tax problems or anything else? What you want to do is you want to target that marketing rather than just firing it all over the place. And it's a lot of times people have heard me refer to the difference being a shotgun versus a rifle approach. And the rifle approach is a lot better. You pick out a target, aim at it, and hit it. If you use the shotgun approach, you're just blasting birdshot all over the place and hoping there was a bird in the way, if you will. Would like to see you focusing on how you go about picking the people you're going to market to, and thereby getting a much bigger dollar value out of your investment in marketing. So when we talk about doing that, the only way you're going to do it is if you're going to market to the multitudes, if you will, you better have a lot of money to burn, because probably 80% of what you're sending out there is just totally wasted and is not going to bring you any good results. So moving on from there, we're going to talk about whether or not direct mail is dead. And you'd hear this, by the way, often from people who are sold on how wonderful the Internet is, and boy, it's easy to fall in love with the Internet. What does it cost you to send out an email? Virtually nothing. Well, if I can market for free, why would I do something that I've got to pay for? I mean, if I just send out direct mail and I got the good old USPS, United States Postal Service, working for me, they want to be paid. And if I'm going to send out sales letters, postcards, the lumpy mails, self-mailers, those sorts of things as types of direct mail, that costs money. You have to put it together. You have to, create the hard copy. You have to pay for the postage, so on and so forth. We're going to look at some of the costs of direct mail in a couple of minutes here. But is it, in fact, dead? Turns out that the Direct Marketing Association, there's an entire association having to do with direct marketing, and they claim, and their statistics prove, that direct mail marketing is still one of the most viable methods of marketing for any small, especially any small business. If you're a Ford Motors, I guess you can afford to market a little differently, but I don't think we have any of them on this call, so we're going to stay focused on our own people. As far as we're concerned, is the Internet the place to be? Well, you know what? It is. You should be on the Internet. You have to be on the Internet to having a website. You might want to do some email marketing, that sort of thing. But it shouldn't be where you place all your eggs in one basket. You don't want to be doing just direct mail, or I'm sorry, just Internet marketing, and assuming that that's going to carry your business. I'll give you a hard-learned lesson that we've just recently experienced here. We did a 4-year campaign on television. Television created an awareness that you almost feel like a local celebrity. I can't go into my local Starbucks or supermarket or anything of the sort without running into somebody saying, oh, I saw you on television here. Yeah, I saw you on television again, over and over and over again. And boy, it feels good, man. Everybody's seeing our marketing and all that. But what was a shock was when we sat down and we did a detailed analysis of that whole 4-year campaign, and we found out that television was paying for itself. Well, what did I mean by paying for itself? $1 in and $1 out. That doesn't sound like the 3-to-1 I was talking about earlier, does it? So our analysis left us in the position of, okay, great. We've created a tremendous amount of market awareness. And by the way, my partner and I both experience the same thing all the time, running into people who, I saw you on television, this, that, and the other thing. It all sounds so neat and like it's working so well. The dollars coming in the door told a different story. We were literally trading dollars, or nearly so. Could we have done things to tweak it and make it better? Yes, there's no doubt about it. But we looked at some of the other campaigns that we've got, one of them being direct mail, and that's one of the things that actually is the germ of the idea to have this particular seminar for you. And we found that if we invested those same dollars here, or even less dollars here, our return was considerably higher. So we thought, you know what, we're going to focus more on the internet marketing, we're going to focus more on the direct mail marketing, and we're going to let the TV campaign just sit for a while, because right now it's got very long coattails. People tell me, I mean, as recently as yesterday, people have told me, oh, I saw you on television. Well, we haven't been there in a month. But they thought they saw me yesterday, the way they were talking. So that can happen, but we want to talk about where we need to invest. So we're taking some of our own advice here and focusing more on things that give us a better return. There is a study by the United States Postal Service that is very, very interesting. If you wanted to take a look at it, I'd find the reference for you. But basically what it says is that people who receive a direct mail piece from a business spend more time, and I know it's called junk mail or whatever else you want to call it, they still spend more time looking at it, because remember, you put something physical in their hand. If there's any interest at all on their part, in other words, let's say somebody who you might send a postcard to about tax problems. If they have any little tax problem, they are not going to throw that postcard out, even though they may sort their mail over the garbage can. Yours won't be in it. If they don't have a tax problem, sure, it'll probably go along with all the other junk mail. But the study showed not only do they spend more time looking at it, if they have any interest in it, they hang on to the marketing piece, and the people who hang onto the marketing piece and spend the time looking at it spend over 20% higher average with the person who sent out the marketing piece than they did even if they did deal with someone else. So they even spend more money because the marketing piece is coming out. It's a rather interesting study, but it really isn't necessary to go into the details of it for this particular presentation. You should just know that their results are 100% in support of direct mail marketing being a very strong marketing approach, and the Direct Marketing Association has found the same exact thing in a totally different study. So moving on from that, we want to start looking at targets now. Instead of taking that rifle approach and shooting at every group or every individual who's out there, you want to focus on someone. You want to zero in and find the people that are the most likely candidates for what you do. Well, in our case, who would that be? It's going to be people who have tax problems, for starters. So you got to figure out who your target audience is, and the types of things that you got to consider when you're figuring it out are, how big is this audience? What's the size of it? Because, you know, if you found out that, you know, brain surgeons were a great group of candidates, but there were only 10 of them within 20 miles of your office, that's not a big enough market. There's not enough people in it to make it worthwhile. One of the reasons that we focus on realtors, just to give you an example, is because there are so many real estate offices in each city, and a typical office has at least 50 agents that are attached to it, that are salespeople. So the market size is very, very good. Go to the next criteria on your slide there, being identifiable. Well, the brain surgeon's pretty identifiable. but there aren't many of them, so it kind of rules him out. How about realtors? Are they identifiable? Of course they are. They're in a particular profession that you can get information on. It's easy enough to buy databases of people who are realtors and things of that nature. Do they face any unique challenges? Well, I think you would find that your realtor has a lot of unique challenges. They have to file estimated tax returns. They have to keep track of their own expenses. They have to file the most audited form in the IRS, the Schedule C. And they have to be represented at audit very often. They don't understand what they need to do sometimes to comply with the IRS requirements. So they do have some unique challenges. And are they reachable? Is there a way that you can get to them? Well, one of the ways they're reachable is by direct mail, and in some instances even by email, because you may even be able to buy a list of the email addresses of realtors. We, by the way, don't necessarily recommend just going after them by mailing realtors an email right away. It's much less invasive to send them a postcard or a letter and have them respond to that or opt into that somehow by going onto your website or responding to an offer or whatever. So the criteria that you should be looking at is how big is the market that I'm facing? Is it big enough? Can I identify who the players are in it? Do they have some problem that I can help solve? Well, realtors, by the way, have more than 4 times the national average. And they aren't the only group. I mean, we know there's others. There's small contractors. There's gypsy truckers. There are attorneys. Attorneys all have some of the same things. A successful attorney goes off the payroll and becomes a partner. He receives a K-1. He's now got to pay estimated taxes. So he has some unique challenges there. It's not something he's dealt with before. He always had withholdings before when he was an employee as a member of the firm and a partner. Now all of a sudden he's getting a K-1. He's got to pay his own taxes in. So there are some unique challenges there. Are they reachable? Can you identify who they are? Sure. So all of those criteria seem to work for several different groups: small contractors, realtors, gypsy truckers. I mean, I could go on and on. That's not what we're here to do. We're trying to look at how to direct mail to these people. So what we want to do is we want to target them. Who has a tax problem? And it's easy enough to figure out who has tax problems. The people who file Schedule Cs, who have to pay estimates, things of that nature. And so the key indicators that we've been talking about are things like the Schedule C filer. And I'll light up the next one for you is taxpayers with income and no withholding. So there are people who work, are 1099 type workers. They are another candidate for the same thing. If they're required to pay quarterly estimated taxes, that would be one more thing. So all of a sudden we start saying, wait a minute, who fits into categories like this? Well, the realtors do. That's one of the reasons we picked them. They actually fit right into that. And strangely enough, by the way, the next item down there, when you're trying to say what the key indicators are, look at that next item there. Businesses that rely on customer remittances to pay their bills. In other words, they can't pay their bills if they don't get paid on time as small businessmen. Well, for the realtor, that is closings. If the deal doesn't close, they don't get their commission. So that's an indicator that also makes realtors, even that fourth one fits them. But you might also look at small contractors who, they've got to get paid by their customer before they get their bills paid and can pay their taxes. You may also have employers who pay net payroll because they have cash flow problems. Now all of a sudden you've got a payroll tax case. One of the most lucrative things we run into in tax problem resolution is the payroll tax case. So obviously we've sorted down and said, okay, realtors are one of our high-profile type clients. We are going to focus on doing realtors as one of our areas of concentration. And we have several others, by the way, but realtors is one of my favorites, and it's one of the ones that works best. That's why I'm sharing that one in particular with you. So how do you go about doing it? You want to do it yourself now. Let's say you want to get involved and do the same thing that I'm doing. You want to focus on realtors. And whether or not you've come to the realtor presentation seminar where you learn how to do that, which is a good way to focus on realtors, we're talking about a different way without even coming to that you can start to focus on realtors. First of all, you go buy a list. Go to a list broker. List brokers can sort out, and sometimes you have to, by the way, jump around to 2, 3, 4 different list brokers to find one who has a good list of real estate salespeople. And there's certain criteria that you want to lay down for them. You want them to give you a list that has their name, and they want their full name, but you want it in separate fields. And when I say separate fields, that's just so that you can easily personalize the letters. Personalized letters do much, much better than the Dear Realtor type letter would. If it starts out with, Dear John or Dear Al or Dear Mary, that's going to work a lot better for you than Dear Realtor does. So people realize, they immediately look at that, it's mass mailing, they don't know who I am, they don't care. So you want your list broker to break it down to give you a list that includes first name, last name, middle name, even in separate fields. You want, of course, their occupation listed, and that's important even with a realtor list. The occupation is realtor, right? Well, what if he's a realtor and a broker? You'll find on some of the lists that they sort those down, and it'll say realtor/broker. Well, you may say, all right, I'm not sending to the brokers, or I'm sending a different letter to the brokers, which might even be a better approach. You might also try to limit it geographically, because you don't want every realtor in the country. You couldn't begin to handle them if you got a halfway decent response. So what you want to do is you want to look at, okay, I want this information, but I want it in the surrounding counties, and for, I want their home address, and if I can get it, I want their email address. Why do I want their home address? Because you don't want all the stuff going into the real estate office, having to go through their mail room or their mail clerk or the receptionist or whoever it is that handles the mail when it comes in the office, and saying, okay, I got 12 of these, they all look the same, this must be junk mail, and not even bother giving it to the realtor who's in their office. Or, just tossing it or putting it up on the shelf and saying, all right, we'll hand these out later, who knows. We want it to go to their home address where they get it, where they can sit down and take a look at what we're sending them. So, list selections. First of all, there's different ways of breaking them down, the demographic methods, the geographic methods, and the psychographic methods. The demographic is men, women, age groups, so on and so forth, all the things you can see up there on the slide. You can break groups down that way. And you could get very, very focused. Let's say we stay with our example of realtors. What if you decided to focus on young women realtors? That would be one way to focus it. You could write a particular mail piece saying, as you get started on your real estate career, we know that women make the best realtors in the world, and you might be taking that kind of an approach. I don't know. Focus on something that is particular to them. The more information you have, the more specific you can make it. Now, that's demographics, breaking it down on some very objective things. Are they men, women? How old are they? Do they live in a middle-class neighborhood? What's their education levels? Things of that nature. You can also use geographic, as I said on the first part of this slide. You can look at the surrounding counties or the MSA, the Metropolitan Statistical Area, and say, how far are they from my office? I want people that are within 20 miles from my office. And by the way, in our particular case, we use 30 miles. If I was a practitioner in the middle of Montana, I'd probably use 300 miles because people have to drive long distances there to get the services they want sometimes. One of my friends who is a professional in this area said that she has people who drive 400 miles to get to her office. She's in Montana. So it says to me that it depends on what your area is. You can sort down and get real specific and not only have it by distance from a central point. For example, my office is a central point and I want 5 miles in each direction. Well, think twice when you do those things, by the way. If I used my 30-mile circle and I said I want all of the realtors within a 30-mile circle in every direction, I'm not going to find too many realtors that are in the middle of Lake Erie. But that's what would happen. So, if you want to look at your geographic area, make sure that you're picking them up properly. You might be better off in some instances, depending on where you live, to name specific counties or specific zip codes, area codes, that sort of thing. The list brokers are very good at sorting lists down for you. Moving on to the psychographic things, then you're talking about their activity, their interest, or maybe certain people with certain opinions and attitudes, or what their values are. There's different ways to focus in on it. You might say, for example, being a realtor is an activity. So that might be considered psychographic. But you can find different ways to target these lists and get very, very specific with them. And sometimes what you're trying to do is limit the list to make it better and better and more focused, because you're going to get better results out of it, and you can only afford to mail out so many pieces at once, which is pretty important too, is what is my budget for all of this? So segment it as far as you can, sort them down by county or zip code or whatever decide the way you do it. Now, here's something that we do. In a recent case that I did, a recent program promotion that we did, we sorted them down by county, and we got our list. And once I got my list cleaned up, and I did go through it and clean it up, I got rid of duplicates, I got rid of things that looked like it was perhaps even a husband and wife in the same office. I looked at the home address was the same. So I said, okay, I'm only going to mail one piece to them, because why mail two? If it's of interest to them, either one of them has a tax problem, they will probably share it with each other. So I got my whole list done. By the way, it's nothing more than an Excel database. You can do your data sorting in an Excel database nowadays. You don't have to get real fancy and get into a sophisticated database. Excel will do 90% of what you want without a problem. We got it all sorted down, got the list down to 3,100 names of the realtors that we had purchased for this area. After I did that, I went through the list and took every other line, and there's a way, I'm not going to go through an Excel spreadsheet methods, but I'd be happy to share it with somebody if you want to call me about it. But you can go through an Excel spreadsheet and take every other line and sort it into one group, and take the remaining group and put it into a separate group. So what we did is we decided that we were going to take every other line. Now, who cares about every other line? Why didn't I just take one zip code for one piece and a different zip code for a different piece? Because I want a good sample and a good test. So rather than saying, okay, all of the people in the 14221 zip code are going to get the letter, and all people in the 14425 zip code, they're going to get the postcard, because we're going to send them both. We're going to send out 3 letters and 3 postcards. And if I just did it by zip codes, I might find that there were other influences there. Perhaps one of those communities is a wealthier community than the other, and that might make some difference in what you're offering or you're trying to generate. So I just simply went through the entire list and took every other name after I had sorted it down by county, and divided them into 2 groups. Now, my 2 groups ended up with 3,100. It was 1,500 in one group and 1,600 in the other. You might say, why did you do 1,550 in both of them? We just elected to do that because of the budgeting. It costs more money to send out postcard or letters than it does postcards, and so on. So, needless to say, we broke it down into 1,600 and 1,500 each. And one group was going to get the letter, and one group was going to get the postcard. And we didn't mix it around. We didn't send the second time we mailed, we didn't send the letter people a postcard and the postcard people a letter. You keep it consistent so you can test your results and see what's going on. So we created 3 different letters and 3 different postcards to send out to them, and I'm going to show those to you in a minute. But then we mailed out the first round of them and mailed them on the same day. The postcards and the letters went out on the same day. And we then test and track number 1, see what happens. We give it a month, and then we go into number 2, and we test and track the number 2 postcard and letter. Then we go to number 3, and we're tracking our results all the way through there, because we're trying to find out one major thing in this mailing. Do postcards work as well as letters, or do letters work better? And the importance of that is for all of our future campaigns, that if we found out postcards were equally effective or even better than a letter, then I can cut my costs way down and I can mail out that many more pieces, because postcards cost less to do than letters do. So let's move on a little bit from that. But when you get one that's working, once you've determined it, what I'm talking about there on that slide, when you say now you have a control, the piece that works best when you do a campaign and you're testing things is called the control. And once you have a control, you use that until another piece is better than it is, and it becomes your control. So let's say that our campaign showed that our letter worked and that a 3-page letter was the most effective of them all. That would become our control, and that particular letter would be something we'd use repeatedly, and we'd build on that. And we'd use that as our main focus for doing another campaign here. So once you get a piece that you know is working well, that becomes the control until it gets supplanted by something working better than that. So what do you need to create these things? I'm talking about 3 letters, 3 postcards, so on and so forth. You have your artist types, and you have your writer types, different type of artist, I guess, a writer. Somebody's got to actually write the letter. and by the way, that word copywriting, for anybody that's not terribly familiar with a lot of marketing stuff, that's not copyright like to protect something where you see the little C in the circle. It means it's protected. This is copywriting and how to write copy for marketing pieces and to generate an interest with people. So we did the copywriting. We wrote a series of 3 letters, and we used the approach, which is a pretty common approach, pretty well known as the AIDA, or however you want to say that. But it stands for, it's the acronym for attention, interest, desire, and action. So the idea is when you write something, you want to get their attention, you want to create interest, you want to create a desire, and then you want to create action. And the action being, of course, to contact you. That's generally what you're looking for. Some people, by the way, might take that AIDA approach and say, well, that's the same thing as pointing out a problem and then agitate the problem. This is in what you're writing to the people. You point out the problem that maybe they weren't even aware they had. They didn't know that they were the most commonly audited form in all of the IRS, these realtors. So you tell them what their problem is, and then you agitate the problem by telling them the bad things that can come out of an audit. And maybe in the next couple of paragraphs you agitate it even further. Give them a couple of horror stories or a couple of stories of things gone wrong for a realtor. And then you finally provide a solution, and you close your letter with a call to action. That's the whole approach to writing good copy for marketing pieces. At the same time, you might also want to consider having an offer, whether it's to offer them a free book or some kind of a premium, you're going to give them, or a discount on something, or a free report that's particular to their business, and then you also have to track it, of course. Now, at the same time, you want to marry the copywriting with, when you're going to use a combination, the copywriting goes with the 3 letters. Now you're looking at the 3 postcards, and you need graphics done for that, and you need the artistic touch on that. Any difference in that? Or are you going to use action, interest, desire, I'm sorry, you're going to use attention, interest, desire, and action? Of course you are. So that's got to be built into it. It's just a little different approach when it's on a postcard and then you're using graphics. You're still going to have an offer. You might offer a book or a premium or a report, like we said, and you're going to track the results there. So the letter is more copy-based. The postcard is more graphics-based, and that's how you determine which one works better, is creating them both and testing them both. So now, okay, you said that I should offer them something, like a book or a premium or a report. Well, one book that could be offered to them, and I'll tell you more about it in a minute, is How to Solve Tax Problems Now. Another premium that could be, maybe if you respond to my letter, I will give you 2 movie tickets, or I'll give you a dinner for 2, something like that. Depending on how much money you want to invest in these things, what you're willing to pay to get a response is what it boils down to. Another thing might be that I'll send you a free report on realtors' income tax problems or something of that sort. How about a discount? If you come in and see me within the next 30 days, I will give you a special 20% discount. It's only available if you bring this letter in, that sort of thing, and perhaps just on your tax prep. By the way, when we did ours, we did build both of those things in. We actually were marketing for tax problem resolution. But we always made sure that there was a little mention in there that, hey, if you don't have a tax problem, we're specialists in dealing with realtors. Come see us just to get your tax return done. And we found a number of people responded to that part of it. But that was not the focus of it. Our focus, and you always want to keep one main focus, our focus was to get a response from people with tax problems. So looking at our little moving barrels here, the beauty of it is the guy who's sitting there reading your book or who has asked for your book has qualified himself, or if he's asked, taken advantage of the premium or the special report, they're qualifying themselves by asking for something from you. They wouldn't ask you for How to Solve Tax Problems Now book if, in fact, they didn't have a tax problem or know someone who did. So that's what we mean by their self-qualifying. They're going to let you know that they have a problem simply because they've asked for what you offered. And these are some of the things that you need to pique their interest and to get them to desire what you're offering and respond to you. So let's get really specific here about the most recent campaign that we ran and the results of it. I'm going to not only show you what the campaign was, but I'm also going to show you the results and the tracking of it so you know how to track these cases. first thing we did is we put together a postcard. And the postcard had some great graphics in it. Sarah did a lot of good work on it, and you can kind of see a miniature picture of it there. The postcard is all laid out. I think the one right there is that's number 2 postcard. That's not the first one we sent out. The first one that we sent out was just making realtors aware of the fact that, hey, there's somebody that specializes in your industry who can help you with tax problems, do your tax returns, whatever else. And then the second one went out making the offer to them, giving them a free book, no strings attached, no nothing, just ask for it and you got it. No shipping charges involved, so on and so forth. So we made sure that they realized that we're really just trying to give them something. And the third one that we sent out had to do with preparing their tax returns, or if they had a tax problem, so on and so forth. They all followed the same theme. They had the same kind of a look. Like you can see in ours, we used green as the base color. They all had that kind of an approach, and most all of them had a picture of the Solve Your Tax Problems Now book in them. So after the 3 postcards, we also did 3 letters. And I shouldn't say after, I should say contemporaneous with. We did them at the same time. They were mailed on the same day. It's a little hard to see that on the screen, but that's that one's a 2-page letter that we sent out. And the first one was the first letter that went out said, the most important letter you will ever read about realtors' income taxes. Big headline on it. The second one was tax problem solutions for realtors' taxes, and it was a free gift, no strings attached. The letter, same exact theme as the postcard, but in a letter. And then the third one that went out, because it was going out in the month of March, we were able to pick up and play on March as National Clean Up Your Tax Act month. And by the way, that's a real month for any of you that don't know that. It's been registered for a long time. It is a legitimate thing. You could advertise that and use it yourself. March is, in fact, National Clean Up Your Tax Act month. So put that into your marketing tools, even if you don't have time to do it this year. Or if you're clever, you can find a way to still use it this year, because even though you couldn't get a marketing piece out today, you might get it out within the next week or so and say, March is National Clean Up Your Tax Act. Have you missed it? Well, lucky you. We're extending it through April this year. So you could stretch it and make some good out of it. You just got to think about how to do some of these things with a marketing piece. And you get them to respond to that, and now you're going to make some kind of an offer to them. Come in and get your 20% discount off of any services that we render. By the way, in my letter, I mentioned to them, you don't have to tell me you came in from the letter. You can wait until we're all said and done and we bill you, and then you can take the 20% off. So I'm not going to be raising my fees so that I can knock it down 20%. We're not playing games with them. We give them a legitimate 20% discount. So that's one of the 3 letters we're talking about there that you can see on the sidebar. And the thing that we're offering them is the Solve Your Tax Problem Now. And you can see the cover of the book. It said ASAP. Well, that's crossed out, and it says Now. And that's what's become the title of the book. And that is actually a picture of the book right there. That's what it looks like. And it's the subtitle on it is What Taxpayers Need to Know to Solve Tax Problems. So that's a legitimate book that we offer them. It's specifically written for the layman, and it created some attention. They like getting a free book. They don't even have to pay for shipping or anything else. Pick up the phone and ask for it, and they get it. So, and by the way, you can have a book like that too. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about what the project and how it worked, though. All right, we had 3,000 addresses. So our marketing project had 3,000 addresses in it. We purchased the list with unlimited use. It cost us $238. And now I spent a little bit of time on that, cleaning it up, because there were some duplications in it and so on, but it was pretty good. Then we took the postcard printing and mailing, 1,600 pieces. This is in the first phase. And that cost us $843. Then we printed the letter. We did that in-house, and we did 1,500 of those, because the grand total really was 3,100. And we had 3 pages, and we had at 3.6 cents a page, $162. It cost us $735 to mail, and the labor time that we had into it was about 10 hours, and we averaged at $15 an hour, $150. Phase 1 ended up costing us $2,128. I'm not going to bother reading the entire spreadsheet to you. You can see the numbers there, or you can look at them if you want after we post these on the internet for you. All members can get to them. They'll be right in the members section. Second phase cost us $22.30. By the way, you'll notice something on the second line of the second page, or third line of the second page, that there's only 1,400 pieces going out. The reason for that is that we lost about 100 of our count after the first phase, because we found out that those pieces came back to us in the mail. We used first-class mail, so the ones that weren't deliverable came back. Well, we immediately take all those out of our database because we don't want to mail to them again. They didn't go through the first time, bad address or whatever else. So that works fine for a letter or something that's going first class. Well, the postcards didn't go that way. The postcards didn't get returned, so we were 1,600 on every one of those mailings. I'm sure that there were at least 100 of those that were probably wasted too, but we didn't know that because of the way the mail worked. So that's the reason you see the drop there, and when those returns come back, you immediately pull those out of your database. You don't want to mail to them a second time. We also had the book. Now, in the second phase, we offered them the book. So we had to have 100 books printed at $4.50 a piece, $450. The labor was 10 hours on that. By the way, that's not the labor of writing the book, okay? That's the labor of putting together the marketing campaign. We'll talk about the labor of writing the book in a minute. But phase 2 was $2,230, using the same exact concept down below. Phase 3 was only about $1,700. Total campaign, $6,138. And we had 3 touches on 3,000 realtors, okay? So there's no time calculated for the professional hours of writing the letters or the book or whatever else. And you'll see why in just a minute, because you could do this same campaign without having to do that. But let's take one more step and go look at the short-term results. Weeks 1 through 4, case 1 comes up with $4,250. Case 2 comes up with $3,400, grand total $7,600 of results. Now, that was just 2 cases came in. One was an offer in compromise, as you can see, because there's an X in the offer column to the right. One was an installment agreement. And then there were 2 tax returns. On top of that, people just brought in their regular tax return, not tax problem cases. Weeks 5 through 8, case 3, 4, and 5 that were generated by this mailing. There's the dollar amounts for each one of them, and the grand total, $9,800. Same thing for weeks 9 through 12. So now you're all the way up to $14,000. The total campaign, if you add it all together, generated $31,000. The package costs, premium package costs were $8,400. You got to have a return on investment short term was 3.72. So it meets my criteria. That's number one. And just this is how you go about tracking these things. By the way, in week 9, where you see case number 6 there, that one happened to be an innocent spouse case. You don't get near as many of those as offers and installment agreements for tax returns. But so we just made note of that in the other. So that's what that's all about. Your marketing efforts should always commence in time before the season when you want to see the business coming in. Again, that's why we're running the seminar at this time of year. You want to track your fees and your case types generated by the mailing. If you don't know what your results were, you won't know if you want to keep doing it or change it or find out a way to try and make it better. Now, I said to you before, you don't need to necessarily count the time of writing a book and the time of writing the letters and everything else, because we're, again, trying to give you some done-for-you type marketing. So in this first scenario that I'm going to show you here, you'll see in that bar where it says author, and the author is me and ASTPS because I wrote the book. And we will put it into the customized format for you with, giving you the book, giving you the letters and everything else. However, that's not the same thing as you being the author. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But if someone were to order 100 of them, the cost to them would be $9 a piece, and that'd be $900. A full pay in advance a member, and by the way, only members can buy this. So if you have an interest in it and you're on this call and you're not a member, you got to become one of our members, and our dues break down to a whopping $15 a month, and we think we give you a whole lot more than your money's worth for that, so it's $180 a year. But if you only wanted 100 of them to try the campaign, you'd invest $855, and you'd have the book to send out to them. Obviously, the costs go up with the more books you buy, but the cost per book goes down. So looking at that, you would decide how many you wanted, and a lot of people I think probably could get by just fine with 100. And if they had to order a second 100, they'd be delighted because they got such great results. The way we allow it is the terms have got to be a third down, a third in 30 days, and a third in 60 days. And it's got to be pre-authorization on a credit card. So along with that, by the way, you get the bonuses of the 3 sample marketing letters and the 3 sample postcards and letters. So there's a way to put that whole campaign together. If you were looking at sending out 100 books as part of the campaign, by the way, these books generate a lot of interest, you'd be investing about $855 in the materials. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let me just make that move. Okay. Technical difficulties here. Get myself confused. So this is a standard package. This is where you are not the author of the book. If you wanted to be the author of the book, which by the way has involved in it a lot of other marketing opportunities, let's talk about that. What we're talking about here is we would put your name on the book as the author. There would be nothing referencing that I wrote it or anything else. I become your ghostwriter, if you will. And some people said, yeah, I'd much rather have that. We have, by the way, talked to a bunch of different members and people and said, what would you prefer? Because we thought about just creating the book and letting them send it out as an ASTPS publication. And a lot of people said, no, I'd like the idea of being the author on it. It makes you look like a real expert and so on. I said, well, let's do it both ways. So that can be done. Obviously, it gets somewhat more expensive because 100 versus in the first scenario was like $855. This is basically $1,500 more. Same terms and everything else, and you do get the customized letters and everything else, and we put them on a disc, the postcards on a disc ready to go to your print house and so on, so that it's a little more, even more done for you, if you will. Taking that, and let's just go over and look at what happens with those numbers for a second here. This is now you being the author. If you look at those campaigns, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, I started to mention it, premium package offers additional marketing opportunities. For example, you might call your local small newspaper, community newspaper or something, and say, I've just published a book on tax problem resolution, and, would you be interested in talking to me about it here in the middle of tax season, or tax season's just ended, and a lot of people who didn't get their tax returns filed on time might have an interest in this topic. You might find that you can do a lot of other things with it, and you can hold yourself out 100% to be the author because in this scenario you have purchased the right to do that. It's like hiring a ghostwriter. The standard package, if your direct costs were a total of $6,138, which is the same cost that we incurred with the mailings and everything else that we talked about earlier, plus the cost of buying the package of $855, your total investment would be just shy of $7,000. If the average case that comes in is $3,000, you need to break even at 2.33 cases. Now, if you said instead of that, I'd rather be the author, I want the premium package, you're still going to spend $3,138 doing the campaign itself with its 3 phases, but the book cost, and that is going to add $2,328 to it at the 100 package level, total of $8,466. Divide that by an average case of 3,000. Break-even number of cases, interestingly enough, is only 2.82. So now you're looking at, wow, I still only need 3 cases to recover all of my money. Obviously, I don't want you marketing and just recovering your money, but you always look at that first. First of all, how do I get made whole? Then how do I make profits? Well, once you've brought in 3 cases from it, after that, pretty much you have no costs. You've eaten, covered all of your costs. So it's a good thing. And I have no consideration in this schedule of the extra money that you make from doing tax preparation if you generate tax return business. And we did get a number of them. So if you think that's of interest to you, and I'm sorry if I'm rushing through this a little bit, but I know it's the middle of tax season. We promise you we get done in an hour, and we're getting real close there. So I want you just to look at this thing and realize that it is a cost-effective way to do things. It is answering also the problem that many of my members have said to me, oh, yeah, but you write stuff all the time. I don't have time to write it, or I'm not a good writer. I just don't like to write. I don't even like to read. We've tried to solve that problem for you as well and make some of the things that we're using for marketing purposes available for you. By the way, the book is a nice glossy cover. It's a really nice little book, and people enjoy getting it. So to do just like they do on TV, here we are at ASTPS, and we're making an offer to you. We're giving you something that you can get if you're interested in it, or if you just decide to go do your own. We hopefully gave you some good advice in here as to how you go about segmenting the market, focusing on the market, so on and so forth. But regardless, the operators are standing by. They're all sitting around with their phones in their hands, so if you're interested in it, feel free. We will be more than happy to hear from you or answer questions or whatever else. Now, Sarah, do you have any questions from anyone over there? Because now we're at the 3 o'clock mark, and I'll be happy to stay on here if there's any questions to be answered, or let me know. If not, we can let everybody go.
Yes. I have an interesting question because we had looked into this also as far as running the publication as an e-book rather than a printed copy. So is that something that is available?
We do not have the book in an e-book format at this point in time. And if you're going to do it as an e-book, you're going to find that a lot of people are going to go in and download it, but then you've still got to try and get their response. Now, they're going to download it. You can make them go to a landing page or a squeeze page, as they call it, and give you their email address and things like that. But they haven't really contacted your firm other than electronically. We focused on, no, we want the people to get to know us. By the way, keep in mind, we only went 30 miles from our office, so pretty much anybody can drive here in a half an hour. In fact, a joke around Buffalo, New York area is that you can get to anything in 20 minutes, and it's pretty much true. So I feel that, yes, you could take the book. You would have to do this on your own at this point in time. I haven't created it as an e-book, and I know I could do that probably fairly easily. I have the software for e-books, but we felt like the campaign was better if it was done this way, where they actually contact the office and you send them out a copy of a hardcover, not a hardcover, it's a paperback, but it's a glossy paperback cover. It's a very nice product. By the way, it's got, if any of you are interested in printing things like that, it's done on 70-pound paper. It's done with color throughout the book. It's a nice little piece for people to take away. They enjoy having it. So it's really, really well done as far as that goes, as far as them having something that they keep their hands on. If they download an e-book, you know what? Half the people who download e-books can't even find them 10 days later. They don't know where they downloaded it to, or they got into reading it on the screen. They read the first 10 screens, and after that they left it and they never finished it. Whereas with the book they hold in their hand and they can take with them easily, they'll read it over lunch, they'll read it when they get a chance, they'll have it sitting next to their easy chair. I just think it really does seem to work. So that's my best answer for the question. I certainly wouldn't tell somebody not to try it, though, if they wanted to do that. So any other questions?
That's a good point. One of our members, David, just mentioned that an e-book may not be as good as something that's tactile and something you have to hang on to, and it's a little bit more, has some value and weight to it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yep.
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
Well, you have an audience that isn't agreeing with you. So we have a couple questions in regards to obtaining lists. What would you say about that?
Well, I'll tell you exactly how I did it. I went on the internet and I searched for list brokers, and specifically list brokers who had realtor lists. And I came up with one, and if somebody wanted to know who they are, that is part of what we provide to them with the package. In fact, I will even give you a copy. Anybody who gets involved in doing this, I'd be happy to give you a copy of my invoice so you know what I paid for it and everything else, or so you know who the person is to contact. I mean, I've pretty much told you what it costs. So, the bottom line here is that you can go on the internet and search out list brokers. There are just so many of them out there. But you want a list broker who tells you he's got realtors. And 2 or 3 of them that I contacted said, you know what, I don't really have a breakdown by realtors. I said, okay, fine, I'll call you another time, and went on to the next one. It took me probably half hour, 45 minutes of phone calls, and I had it done. I had our list broker. And we got 3,000 names from them, and they were obviously pretty good names because we got results with them. So, okay. You know, and if somebody needs that, in fact, if you really want the name of the list broker, if somebody cares, I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I probably should have. But I would be more than happy to, when we put the slides up there, Sarah can put up another little piece that says, you know, who the list broker was that we used. Okay.
And this is our really last question that may have been covered, but the bottom line of letters versus postcards, and which we found to be more effective. I know it is a trial and error kind of situation for everybody personally, but for us, what was our findings of the two?
Well, strangely enough, we don't have an answer to that yet. First of all, this campaign just, you know, is barely brand new sort of thing that we started. At the moment, the postcards and the letters are running neck and neck. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to watch this over the next couple of months and see if one maybe has longer coattails than the other one does. And you know what? I won't be a bit surprised if it's the postcards, because the postcard we used is a nice, you know, multicolored, glossy finish thing. And a postcard's a real easy thing to, you know, just leave on the corner of your desk, whereas letters sometimes get buried or whatever. I don't know. I'm hoping that postcard is the better one of the two, because between you and I, it's a lot less writing for me. You know, you got to be careful what you write and make sure that it's well done and it hits the targets, but it takes less time to write a postcard than it does to write a letter. But at this point in time, they're running pretty darn close. I think actually the letter might be slightly ahead. The last time I looked, it was a little bit ahead, but I can't give you a definitive answer because we got to have 3 more months. So I apologize, but I wanted to get this to everybody before we were talking about it in the middle of the summer, and you say, well, wait a minute, this isn't going to cover my off season. You'll have me running this thing starting in tax season. I don't want to do that. So we thought we'd tell you about it during tax season, and you can start making your plans and then run it during the off season for yourself. By the way, I mentioned that our third letter talks about March being National Clean Up Your Tax Act month and that sort of thing. If anybody does get this package, I am going to rework that letter so it could be used as a more generic thing, probably give you both copies, so that you could use it as a March letter for National Clean Up Your Tax Act, but you could also use it in the middle of the summer for a, you know, July 4th holiday sale or something of the sort. I don't know. I'll write something for you. But right now, I'm sorry, but I don't have a better answer to give you. It's not a campaign that we've been running for years or anything like that. We said, okay, a book is a good way to get to drum up business, to generate new business. So I sat down and I wrote it and put it together, had it printed, and we've got it done and working. So, you know, it's one of those things. I mean, the book's not all that long. It's 50, 60 pages long, something like that. But it's printed on a nice paper with a nice cover, and it's not at all intimidating. It's something that is very, very easy for the layperson to read, and it's all it does when we're all said and done is generate business for you, because it doesn't teach them how to become a tax problem solver. It just lets them be aware of the fact that there are programs out there that you know how to deal with, and that's why being the author is a good thing for you, and that's why we offer it both ways. So, any other ones there, Sarah?
The only other questions besides those are relating to online media marketing, which is a whole other can of worms that
yes.
obviously does not relate to direct mail marketing, and I'm sure we have other platforms to discuss that at another time.
Right. You know what we might mention there is that the Marketing Sales Management Boot Camp has been revised, and there's at least a half day of search engine optimization, email marketing, and all those things. And we don't have me teaching it because I'm not the expert in that area. I mean, I know how to market, and I know how to write stuff. And Sarah knows how to create the graphics to make it look really pretty. But somebody's got to know how to get the stuff to work well on the internet. Actually, Sarah's been doing a fair amount of that, working with our guy. But we actually have a gentleman who is going to speak at that next seminar. Actually, 2 of them are coming, aren't they, Sarah?
Yes, the dates are not determined.
I think the plan is to have both of the owners of the company there, and one being the more technical guy and the other guy being technical and marketing, and they're going to present at least a half a day of that 2-day seminar the next time we run it. So that topic is of interest. It's important. It's something you should be doing, but it isn't the topic of this one, and I'm not prepared, and we don't have the time, obviously, to cover all those kinds of questions about internet marketing.
Right.
So does that kind of wrap it up, or?
That definitely wraps everything up.
Okay. We appreciate you tuning in here in the middle of tax season. If anybody is interested in this done-for-you product, certainly, please feel free to email Sarah or call Sarah or whatever else, and she can get you started on the right path. Other than that, I guess I'll say adieu and go back to work myself, because I got a pile of tax returns on my desk too. So everybody have a good season, and hopefully look forward to seeing you at the next event.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.